Thank you so much, Hosanna. What we'll do is we'll have a 30 minutes of discussion and about 15-20 minutes of question answers, because I did have some slips coming saying we want to ask more questions. Although Raghav, I must have told me he had 5 women in his life. I don't know what happened to the 5th one. Okay, that was not for the general public. Okay.
That was wine, actually.
Yeah, right. So it is their day, and I think it's a very proud moment to have both Raghav and Rahul with us to be launched as young CEOs. I have seen them over the last few weeks, and I can tell you the resilience that CP talked about in Rahul and Raghav is amazing, and I really wish them the best of luck, and I'm sure they'll do really well in the projects that they are going to talk about in a little while. And Suhas, thank you for a wonderful speech, and we'd like to hear a little more on that. So, I was sort of wondering what questions to ask you, because a lot of Suhas has already shared his views with us, and Raghav and Rahul, obviously, a lot of people know you. So I thought I'll just start by asking the three of you gentlemen about what is your view on initiatives like the Young CEO program that you've just witnessing, and do you really think this builds a company culture, and what do you think of the whole program and the initiative around it? So whoever wants to start first.
Yeah, I feel this is actually an amazing initiative, as indicated, an amazing initiative to foster innovation and entrepreneurial spirit within the organization, and at the same time, when you have members of your own organization who would have amazing ideas, and if they have not got the platform to actually exhibit the idea and incubate the idea within the organization, it is when it's very likely that such probably ideas are never brought into action, or else you would have the individual who may need to step out of the organization and to start something all over from scratch. So I think the best thing is if there is a platform which is extended with the organization, and if it fits into the organization's vision, I feel that it's an amazing way for the organization to foster innovation and entrepreneurial spirit within the organization. So I think Mahindra Satyam is doing an amazing job in taking forward and implementing and incubating these ideas. So hats off to all of them who've been instrumental in executing this program.
Raghav, what about you?
See, what is important is not the word called young CEO. The important is the concept. And there was a discussion that we were having over lunch also. In our daily lives, in our daily processes, in the bids that we make, the wins that we make, the wins that we don't make, the things we lose, there's a bit of flavor that comes from the market. The market says, this is what Tech Mahindra or Mahindra Satyam was when it started, and we started as a startup, right? Right, on the blocks. The concept is, how do you pick up what you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, and it cannot be always a 30,000 organization walking and creating new waves. It's always have to have the value system, in the sense that if you know that there's 5, 6, 7, 8 critical verticals that you want to grow with, then within that, isolate those opportunities that have the highest probabilities and invest in it. Whether you call that as mini CEO, or whether you call it GLCs, or whether you call that as XYZ, what matters is the ability to handhold that to a certain degree and then leave it to the individual to run with it and support it from the back end and ensure that with that progress, the company increases this progress. So the concept is important, naming is not. But as you said, I mean, to your point, the architect that walked onto you, in your organization also, it's a mini CEO. Yeah. He had a concept, and you trusted that concept, and you're going to invest in that. You call that mini CEO, you don't call it mini CEO. It doesn't make a difference. If the guy has your backing, if he has your mentorship, he will run with it. And if he'll run with it, the probability of him succeeding is more. He might fail, but that failure will feed into some other initiative that will sometime or other succeed.
So first of all, thanks, Harsh, for making me part of this program. And I think I also need to thank my my colleagues, especially Renu Khanna. She's been calling me the mini CEO for the last 4 days, and today I suddenly feel like a CEO, right? So thanks, Renu. I think I got the confidence in here now. But see, personally, I think I kind of tag along with what Raghav has talked about, but also personally, right? I think this program is creating an opportunity to seek advice from the senior management, could be the chairman, could be the CEO, could be the senior management, and it's very easy to seek advice and direction from them, right? And on top of it, it has got a very clear expectations, and it's very easy to focus, on your deliverables moving forward, right? While the Young CEO program, as Sujit was talking about it, there's a lot of ambiguity around it. We cannot really say, if you ask me 1 year down the line, you tell me 20 different things that you need to do, I don't know. But now I know the number one thing that I need to deliver end of the year, right? So there's a lot of ambiguity, and people have to be comfortable in being part of that ambiguity, right? All said and done, I think it's very exciting. I think every day is different, every day is exciting, and to be part of this program, I think you have to be supercharged to succeed. And I'm really glad to be part of this.
And just to add to this entire context, the program in Sech is basically enabling some idea to move from a conception to a delivery standpoint. And it's going to happen like in a weeks or quarters. It's going to happen through a journey, and the company as such is willing to spend that much of time, money, effort to make that happen. And that's what's unique about this program and its enablement process.
So thank you, Raghav, Rahul, and Suhas. And that quiet moment yesterday, Raghav did tell me that he was really excited about the program, and he went and bought this very nice shirt that he's wearing, because his wife refused to let him come in a white shirt. Said, it's a really nice, you've been launched as a young CEO, you can't be wearing a white shirt. So one thing that everybody's really asking is, we've heard this young CEO and the projects that you're doing, and even for you, Suhas, that we've heard about your organization, Globals Inc., but we don't know much about what the deliverables are, what you guys are doing. So it's like would you sort of want to tell us a little more, starting from you, maybe Raghav, on what is your project? We've heard this platform called iResolve, but just tell us a little more about it, and for you, some strategic initiatives that you're taking in education and finance, and Suhas, about your organization and how you're taking it forward, and what does it do? So a little bit more light on what the projects, etc. are. So Raghav, over to you.
See, about 3 quarters back, we thought within the BSG group, there's a significant amount of growth that we've done in the last 5 years. What's the way forward? Way forward is non-linear and disruptive. And when it comes disruptive, it said platform is the way forward. So we've kind of had 4 platforms that we think we can take to the market, out of which there's one platform that we call as I2R. We started calling it I2R. We love these jargons. And then IG said, come on, let's call it iResolve. It's a remote tech support, in a very, very simple language, it's a remote tech support platform for a B2C segment to start with. And the concept is that the industry is moving from multi-vendor, multi-device support to a concept called mobile home, whereas a single connected home would always need, as a household, especially in the US, a single solution provider. And not necessarily that provider has to be in US, physically present in that location. Industry is moving from point solutions to shared services, and is looking at, if I look at telcos in the telcos that we serve, to enable them to sell more than the device, the bundle device, to enable them to sell more than the wireline or the DSL, to enable them to penetrate in the customer mindshare as a single provider for the device that through which they enable their connected home is what we thought is unique to the market, and we're trying to build a platform around it. Obviously, our idea is to do that through our own products and services, and wherever we'll have to partner, we'll partner.
Okay, so just before we go to Rahul, I believe that companies like iYogi also do the similar stuff, and so how is it going to be different, and why do we get into this when other companies are already doing it?
See, I'm not saying the concept does not exist in the market, it does. To a limited extent, yes. iYogi to me, and if I have people heard iYogi, it's a white label, it's a private label company, which means today if they will buy a service plan from iYogi, they're going to buy as iYogi service plan. One is I'm differentiating myself from saying it is not going to be Tech Mahindra or Mahindra Satyam service plan, it's going to be a AT&T or a TELUS or a CenturyLink or a KPN. Enabling our partners is the strategy we thought, which iYogi at this point in time does it to a limited extent, not as a whole. Second is, obviously you bring a concept to the market, people will follow. But we feel the first mover advantage will always be there with us. The key differentiator that we have is that today we have got presence across all the major telcos. We do have enough backing in terms of our capabilities that they can trust on us, and hence I think this platform would have a more relatively faster time to market than any non-telco relationship to build and then sell. That's where I think we will always be a differentiator for some years to come, and by the time others catch up, we'll think something more.
And do you think this will be a significant differentiator for Mahindra Satyam Tech Mahindra?
Definitely. So it's not this only platform is going to be single differentiator. We're looking at 4 platforms, but what we think is platform as a strategy is going to be the differentiator, at least from a BSG services standpoint. And today these platforms are basically IT plus BPO services bundled. Together as a company, this is a unique proposition that we put into the market. Other competitors do some tits and bits and here and there. We are stitching it into a cloth, and I think that cloth for some time to come will serve us as a very, very unique flag to our new service offering.
Thank you, Raghav. Rahul, we move on to you. We believe you are the young CEO for strategic initiatives in the area of education and finance. So please do tell us a little more about that.
Grab the mic. So yeah, especially in education, I mean, both the things are very different, right? Education, if you look at education and what is the core competency of MSAT, it's not the direct answer to it, right? But what we found out is many of the graduates that are coming out from the colleges are not really employable, right? If you look at the statistics, not more than 15% are actually employable. So we're trying to get into the higher education sector to kind of build a college which not only creates a scientific mind, but also a management mind with values around it, and also create an interdisciplinary coach. I mean, for example, most of the people here would be doing IT, but your engineering background could have been electronics or chemical engineering or civil engineering. So how did you move from that to this, but still managing to do a good job, right? We're trying to bring this kind of interdisciplinary nature to the education sector itself. We're trying to partner with some of the best colleges across the globe. While we are almost in the final stage of formalizing how exactly we're going to deliver it, we're almost in the final stages now. And most probably in the next couple of months, we will be telling how exactly we're going to move forward, right? In terms of the finance sector, Raghav talked about how he is building the platforms and also co-owning IPs, right? So we found out that the technology right now is moving very fast. The future trends, especially if you look at the M2M technologies, the cloud, the big data, the analytics, some of these things are moving so fast. And as a company as large as ours, sometimes it's very difficult to actually incubate those companies within ourselves, right? So what we're trying to do is, we're setting up this fund with a partnership with one of the private equity companies in Hong Kong, wherein we will start incubating, I wouldn't say incubating, but we will start putting in growth capital for these startups, wherein we will be leveraging their IPs as well as their platforms. One of the ways for us to be, to be a system for a nonlinear growth, right? To be 2015, one of the things we are saying is we not only have to be the #1 from a associate delight standpoint, we have to double the revenues. And one way to do the doubling the revenues really fast is by coming up with the right products which can bring the non-linear growth for us. So that's the finance side we are looking at.
Well, thank you, Rahul. I think one related question that I have for you is that these two are very different kind of projects, right? And very different spaces, and you have to you're still managing to balance your time very well between the two. So what's your secret? Because prioritizing, and I know it's a full-time job. Each project is a full-time job. So how do you do that, and is it a challenge, and how do you manage it? So that's probably a learning for all of us, taking from you.
Well, the first thing is you need to take your, the wife into confidence. Tell her that you're going to be late almost every day. There's no weekends, right? That's the first point. So that's it on the serious angle. I think it's important to multitask. Every entrepreneur has to be able to multitask while prioritizing appropriately. While both of them are very different, the advantage of this Young CEO program is I got a complete support. The system is already there. And there are people who are actually willing to help me whenever I'm getting stuck in some of these areas. So there's also a team that is already in place, right? While I may be the face of this thing, more or less the team is already in place, and the team, being the team in place, it's actually much faster and probably easier for me to delve on both areas, right? That's it. In my life I've done many things. Even before this I wasn't. I was running a renewable energy company. Before that, I was running a media company. So for me, I think I'm very comfortable in doing different things, and maybe sometimes in parallel.
Well, thank you. And I must confess, when today we were waiting for Rahul to come for the Young CEO launch, and I was looking at my watch, and it was 1:30, and I said, "Where are you, Rahul?" He says, "I'm in the secretariat." And my heart really sort of skipped a beat, saying, "I hope you will be here on time." And he, of course, was. So thank you for that. Coming to you, Suhas, I think wonderful presentation, and you did tell us a lot, but we want to know a little bit more about your organization. What do you do? How big is it? You told us 150 employees, but a little more on the organization and what you want to do with it, because you did start early. And what's your ambition? Where do you want to take the organization?
When we started the company, we used to be an outsourcing services company. So we started off by building websites, and after that e-commerce solutions. Then we started to offer outsourcing services to H1 managers to build business intelligence softwares for them, which is specific to the H1 industry. So at one point we really felt that, or I felt that probably as a service business, it's no more kind of igniting me for actually waking up on a Monday morning with the same excitement and the zeal. So, and as an organization, we felt that, okay, so at the management meeting, we asked for ourselves, that is, would we want to be another company where we'd have a massive amount of employees within the company, and we want to scale up as a services company, or we focus on a specific industry and we start innovating in such industry. And for us, we felt that if we could be in a product space, it would enable us to have the freedom to innovate more, and as well as scale up aggressively. And we felt that as a services company which was focusing on SMEs, at one point we would see a saturation, and the market was very fragmented to it. So we started to build student information systems. We started to build platforms for learnings for higher education and schools. We started to focus on frugal innovation, where we could automate. We could enhance accountability and transparency in the public education system by actually using mobile phones at the last mile. So so currently as an organization, we are now focusing on the public and private education space, and we are focusing on the administration and platforms, and we're not focusing on the academic component as of now.
So a related question to you, Suhas, would be, what do you look at taking this company, say, 5 to 10 years from now? Or do you want to start something else? Do you want to get into other kind of lines of businesses? Or so what's your ambition? I mean, you're only, what, 26? Yeah, so you still have some years to go. So what's the ambition for taking this company forward?
Yeah. I feel that ongoing, it's important for us to encourage the ideas within the company. And of course, as I had articulated earlier, that now we're in the process of incubating another startup within the company, which is a B2C internet startup. So I feel that ongoing, as an organization, we certainly want to be in the technology space, and it's probably in some years I would want to have an exit from this company and probably to start something else, which would be interesting. But at this point of time, for another 5 years, we see that there's an amazing scope within the education industry for which we could innovate and which we could add value, and we feel that the market is large and it's quite exciting.
Well, thank you. And so one last question to all of you, gentlemen, is what advice would you have, especially for you, Raghav and Rahul, and of course, Suhas, you did tell us a little bit of mantras, but for people who are aspiring, because we got a lot of mails in the morning and yesterday saying, I want to be part of this Young CEO program. How do I become a young CEO? What do I have to do to become a young CEO? Of course, one is the process, but what is the kind of suggestions or inputs that you will give to these people who want to sort of be young CEOs in the future, since you're leading the bunch and you're the first two young CEOs for a large IT company like ours? So Rahul, maybe.
Okay, yeah. See, I think, let me put it this way, there's hard work, smart work, and network, right? That is going to be critical. Then the second thing is, I think the person has to be passionate in what he's doing. I think someone asked Suhas in terms of, what motivates him. There are, I think, from my standpoint, the motivation has to be beyond what a company can give you. It has to be coming from inside you. Unless you're really passionate about something that you're trying to do, only then you can actually give more than the 100% that that is needed, right? So you have to be really passionate about it, and I think you have to have a gut level determination to win, and you shouldn't be anxious about losing. Many of these initiatives that we are taking in, there is no guarantee that we can succeed. While there is a system in place that will help us to be successful, but you shouldn't be anxious about losing, right? I think these are the three things that I would say to the next set of young CEOs coming in from the company.
Mine is a little different context to it. See, in the environment that we work, right, there will always be things that you will be able to control, influence, and not control. Most of the times, the effort that we spend is on things we cannot control. To me, if today we are able, and we take it as a granted that the things that we can control and influence are given. The fact is, and I strongly believe, if you put you call it 80% or 100% or 150%, percentage I leave to everyone is the individual mark. But if you follow your dream, and that's not for the sake of reputation, we've used the word dream a lot today in the session, but if you follow a dream with a passion and you control your own actions to the best of your abilities, not only best of your abilities, exceed those abilities, most likely, while doing that, you'll be able to control the factors which you could have influenced. Your 2/3 job is already done. And most likely, if your first job of doing it what you thought is under your control to the best and exceeding your abilities, and then influencing that people around you, most likely the third part, with the backing of the organization, will always fall in line. So net, it's basically to think that you can do it and put the best effort. Results might be good, bad. Every bad will have some lessons to learn from. But invest more in doing what you can, or rather than what others should have.
Thank you, Raghav. Suhas?
I would feel would fully agree with both of them, and I think it's important to have the passion, the fire in the belly, and as well as the power to influence others within your team. So, and I would also say that it's important for that individual to have the ability to identify the opportunities around him, and I've had experiences where in my team I've had engineers approaching me with actually amazing ideas, which sounds very futuristic, but ultimately for a business, if we can't monetize that idea and if it's not the appropriate market or appropriate time to have it launched, in that case, it's not a sustainable idea. So it's important to have ideas, have innovations, by which you are able to monetize, and at the same time, the organization could also see the benefit for it to scale up, and at the same time, if it's making impact in the society. So I think that it's important for that individual to have the ability to have his eyes always open to look out for opportunities around him, and innovation always need not have to be something very futuristic or something very sophisticated. It could be as simple as it could be similar to Redbus or something like Facebook, but as far as it's addressing problem statement, I think it makes it sustainable.
No, thank you. And I still do remember one of your slides said, trust but verify, right? Okay, thank you very much. I think we will now open the question answer to this large audience. Seem to have dwindled a little. Yeah. But any questions that anybody has? But we are also live on all locations.
Hi, this is
world,
Kapil.
So we will get those.
One person from the large audience is saving the day for you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Suhas. So Suhas, in Indian context, it is often seen that students or children, they are mostly encouraged to get jobs and get employed in companies. And even people who work in companies who are currently working, they lose appetite for risk with increasing number of years of experience. So how do you think this can be, developed in their mindset, and how can people of India become more risk-taking as compared to what they are now?
Yeah, I think if we need to overcome the stereotype thinking and the mindset, I think the education system plays a very large role in it, because I still remember when I used to be in my school, I would have my teacher asking everyone their ambition, and the way she used to phrase her sentence was, okay, so if you're not studying for your exams well, in that case, you wouldn't be able to find yourself an employment in Infosys or Wipro or Mahindra Satyam. So I think the mindset was like that. So I still remember my mom indicating that, okay, you need to study your engineering because in our area we used to find the white sumos from large IT MNCs who used to come up, and for my mother, for her the ambition was that, okay, she wants her kid also to wear Infosys tag or a Wipro tag or a Mahindra Satyam tag, and to board one of these white sumos that which used to pick them up. So I think for us to overcome the stereotype thinking, I think the education system would influence it. So as mentioned by Rahul, if the education system would also have facilities where they could have incubators for students to experiment their idea, and transformation from the bookish knowledge for practical thinking, I think that would actually help us to foster entrepreneurship within the country.
You'll have to switch it off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Somebody has a question?
Yes, I have. Hey, Suhas, Vikram here. I have...
Little closer to the mic.
Yeah. So while you were presenting, I was reflecting on one of the points. You're doing justice to both important aspects of life.
He works with CP.
So, I mean, I think it would be exception for me because I'm married to our vice president for strategy and marketing. So she heads strategy and marketing. But at the same time, when I got married to Amruta, we were very sure that when we enter home, we're very specific that we wouldn't be speaking about work at all. And at the same time, we also felt that if the stress exceeds, it's either me who would step out of the company or Amruta has to step out of the company. So in case if we are not able to balance. So it's been 4 months since we got married. So until now, we've not seen any fights over sales targets. As a CEO, I've never asked her a sales target after I've gone home. And I think Amruta has not asked me about working hours or about incentives or anything. But I strongly feel that, actually from my experience, apart from having a wife in the company, historically when we started, I used to feel that, okay, he's my friend, so I know him well. So he'll be loyal to my company, he's ethical, he is faithful. So I have to hire him in the company, but ultimately I have to realize that my friends who were on our board were not efficient, because they have to feel that, okay, it's my friend's company, so I don't have to bother much. So I feel that it's extremely important that if you're a CEO or entrepreneur, it's extremely important that you need to become like a split personality, where in the office you need to be the boss, and at home or when you have a personal life, maybe it's you who's the boss if it's a girl. So I think it's very important to have the differentiation. So I've got my friends from my school who are still working in our company, who are like senior software engineers or who are associate programmers. I hang out with them in the weekends, but I make it a point that I wouldn't speak to them about anything on professional matters, or I wouldn't want my friends to influence about an increment which they need, or if they need a sabbatical for a month. So I think it's very specific that upfront, if you're very open about your terms and conditions and the expectation that you have, I think it makes it workable.
If Vikram gives you a CV, please throw it away.
Yes,
Any more
Suhas?
questions?
Yeah, three simple questions, Suhas. This is for you, or maybe for anybody on the panel. What is the gender diversity ratio in your company? First question. Second question is, why do you think there are lesser women mini CEOs? Because out of the two, Harsh, this is for you. Out of two, we don't see any women here. And the third is, what do women need to do differently to come and sit there where Rahul and Raghav are sitting?
So maybe I'm not sure if I could answer all the questions, but I personally have this belief that when we celebrated the Women's Day at our office, my first thought was, when everyone is advocating that we need to bring in the equality between men and women, so why do we have this Women's Day as a separate one day for women, right? So I felt that it has to be equal. Like if men's have not got a Men's Day, so why do we have the Women's Day? And at our organization, we've not made any kind of attempts to say that, okay, because it's a female employee, we need to encourage her, we need to we have to push her up. But I felt that immaterial, it's a man or it's a lady, as far as they have their own individual skills, talent and ability, I don't think you need any special privileges or support for them to move up to the ladder. So at least at our organization, we've got our HR team, which I think everyone in our HR happens to be a lady, and a significant of our employees who work for strategy and marketing are also women. So that's a belief I have, that we need to advocate equality than making the privileges for women, because I feel that like actually if the individual has the ability and the skills, I'm very sure that they will be able to actually move up to the ladder. So at our company, I think the male and female employee ratio is about approximately 70 to 30% right now.
So I have a question here.
So I must answer one question of
Okay,
Renu, that why do we have two gentlemen sitting here? And I can tell you there was one lady in contention, but the question really was, we had a very strict parameter, the three distinct parameters where we had three processes that we followed. And to be honest, the final decision was we'll do it on merit. And if in merit, it is 1, 2, 3, it is 1, 2, 3. If it is 1, 2, 3, 4, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. But I can assure you that this is, as CP said, these are the first two of the many young CEOs that we will launch. We are definitely targeting 10 or more this year itself. So I'm sure you will see a much more diverse sort of a young CEO program.
Yeah, Suhas, this is BK Misra here. First of all, thank you so much coming here. It was very inspiring. As Hari told, that in last several months maybe this one is the best that inspired, motivated all of us across the organization, leadership layers and from associates from all levels. My question to you, that I was listening to you very carefully for last 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and I saw that you are using all kind of business lingos that people try to get those kind of thoughts, ideas after many years. And you told that age has nothing to do with wisdom, and that you have proved today. So my question is that since you told that you have not gone through any formal education or academic system, after 4th semester or something you dropped out. So from where you captured all this kind of formats, the ideas, and articulating those ideas in business language? So did you go through any informal training, or it looks like as if you have gone to a business school and you have done all these things, but it is not. So how it came to you? I'm very curious to know about it.
Sure.
And I would like to share that thing with many people who feel that only a formal education alone will make a person very smart or very composed and very articulative.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I started off with, I was not even aware of the word called entrepreneurship that ever existed. So I knew that I would be a businessman and I would need to start this company and I would be a CEO. So I must say that I started to pick up all these things from my experience with the opportunities, like the way I've got an opportunity here to be at Mahindra Satyam, to actually speak to and to interact with amazing experts like you all here. I think with that experience, I'm able to upskill myself every day. And I don't say that I've upskilled myself or I already have the business acumen net, but I think I'm in that process already, and it's all, I must say that it's all from experience. I've never gone to a B school, but at one point of time at IIM Ahmedabad, I was nominated was invited as a visiting faculty for their entrepreneurship course. So I've been on the other side of the business school, but I've never sat there as a student. I've never had that privilege, but I must say that with experience, it would enable you to upskill yourself much more easier. And I've never been a bookish guy, so I don't read books so often, but I've been fortunate to have amazing set of advisors who are within the company and outside the company who've been able to mentor me every day. For me, when I seek for mentorship, it may not always have to be a successful entrepreneur or a successful individual, but if I meet somebody who's failed in his life, I think he would be an amazing mentor, because at least in my life, if I have to face probably all those hurdles which the other person would have failed, at least I'm aware on how did he address it, and and probably the stress and frustration which he went through it. So at least it could inspire me, and I could be alert in my life. Yeah.
Thank you. So
Thank you. Any more questions?
I have
okay,
one
Harsh
here.
has not had full of questions, so he wants more.
I have one
Last
here.
question for the day, Harsh, is that okay? Yes.
To the whole panel, and especially taking cue from what Suharsh just said, it's not just your key differentiators in terms of the best practices that you follow that make you the young CEOs that you are, but it's also how you handle your failures in life. What do you do differently when you come across a shortcoming? What is it that this panel would share in terms of how you encountered shortcomings, faced them, and then overcame them? And maybe you can share a few anecdotes and also what advice you have for us.
I'll start with a very, very personal opinion about my own capabilities. Deep dive into my role profiles. I started up doing till 8th and 9th. I didn't want to figure out what stream I will take out. Like all youngsters, 9th, 10th, 11th is always the catchy age. I fell in that catchy age and realized I'm not getting the good grades. Had the same beating that, so moms across India are same, right? North or south, mom is a mom. And Cecil is. So I had my own beatings. I think till 11th, 12th, again in graduation, I took up graduation because I loved that college. Whether I wanted to do the BCom, I'm a commerce graduate. Whether I wanted to do commerce, no. I wanted to be in merchant navy. I figured out I can't swim, and I will never. It's a fear factor. And I hated mathematics. So I could not clear the exams. Figured out BCom. Then people started talking MBAs. Again, mathematics. So I could, but I thought I'll do MBA. I'll have to do MBA from a B school. It has to be IIMs. And if I'm not good in maths, I'm not in maths. Then what? Then someone told me, why don't you do chartered accountancy? I said, that's also maths. No, that's not maths. That's numbers simplified in formulas and templates. So I did CA for a year. Realized I'm already, to the extent that I might have vanished in numbers in the age of 40, I left CA as well. To the point that I think I was about 19 years when my mom seriously wanted to have a chat with me. And we sat down one evening outside home, and she said, are you serious about your life? Do you want to do something? And I said, I don't know. I'm yet to find something that I want to do as a career. I had to be pushed into IT because that was the only option left. MBA I could not have done. MCom was out of question. CA I was flunking. So what's left? IT. I'm a quality professional, so I have never done technology. I've never done coding. I've never done what do you call this standard SDLC. But since my first job, I've been teaching people how to do SDLC. I'm an ITL consultant. I've never even touched a data center. To the extent that after even 7 years of my professional career, when I went into managed services, this is the first time I actually saw a high-end active data center. The fact is, there are failures. There are multiple failures that you will come across. The important is how, so I could realize one thing, that I can, out of all the technologies that I'm not well versed with, I can still manage programs. Within the management of the programs, in the process of managing programs, we'll learn things. But if we had failures, I can easily go back and say, hey, I didn't know that, and next time I'll learn that. This company has put another risk by giving a remote tech support platform into a non-technical guy. And I can fail, but the ability that I think I'll recover from the failure and make it faster is what Sujit was referring to. So it is not necessarily that you have to be champion at the very first go. You never walk when you're born, right? so that's how I've taken my career in TechM. There were multiple instances where Sujit would have thrown me out of the company and would have said, you could have done it better. And yes, that advice was always there to do it better.
Well, I think, obviously there's going to be a lot of risks, especially in things like this. And for sure, you're not going to succeed in everything, right? I think, personally, you have to be self-motivated enough to pull yourself up and move on. I don't think there's anything else on this.
Yeah, for me, the shortcomings when I started was I was fortunate to know or identify my weaknesses which I had as an individual. So I made sure that in our organization we wouldn't recruit anybody who has the same kind of weaknesses as I do, or the other way around. So I wanted the other person who when we formed a management team or the founding team, I was very specific to ensure that we have individuals who would be able to fill my gap in terms of weaknesses with their strengths, and so that we've not got anything which actually overlaps. And of course, within the management team, it was very important that actually within the management team, we've not got anybody who is a CEO within the team. So we made sure that if he's in charge for finance, he's the one who has a final say in it. And it applies the same thing for marketing or HR or ops. So I think that's something which we were very specific when we actually started the organization, or when we established the founding team, so that we wanted to make sure that we've not got anybody who has an overlap on it. So and for the biggest hurdle which I faced in my life was the fact that I had employees who had to report to me, and these employees I was half of their age. So I had one of the employee when I was like 15 years. He was a freelancer whom I had to recruit for full time. And when I had finished the telephonic interview, his first reaction was, I would not want to work under a boss who is half of my age. And I feel insecure, and I'm not sure if you'd be very serious about this business, because for you it's like a side venture, it's like a hobby club. So I had to rephrase a sentence to him saying that, okay, at our company we wouldn't have anybody who's working under anybody, but I'm looking for an opportunity to work with you. And you would not have anybody to work under anybody, but it's the employees who actually work with each other. And I think that's quite important to ensure that of course, your age would actually not boomerang against you when you need to hire people and you need to work with them. Like, for example, the CEO of our company, he's on board now almost for 2.5 years now, and his experience is my age. So he was earlier the senior VP at ICICI Infotech. So yeah. When as a CEO, when I need to address something, I make sure that I'm very assertive about it. I encourage ideas from the people, but ultimately, when we have headlock situations, I know that I need to have a final say in it, with all the inputs collecting from my colleagues.
Thank you, Suhas. Thank you, Raghav, and thank you, Rahul. A big round of applause for all three of them. Yeah, okay, I just want to say this to you, Suhas, that we actually changed Suhas's date 3 times. And he was always gracious to say, no problems, I'll make it and I'll be there for sure. We said 8th, and then we said 9th, and then we said 16th. We said Hyderabad, then we said Delhi, and then we said Hyderabad. So thank you so much. And I do remember one thing that you wrote there. And he said, Suhas said, the past is a thief. If you allow it, it will steal your past and the present, right? Your present and the future, right? So I think really profound statement, and thank you for that. And I've written it down, and I'll remember it for a long time to come. Raghav, thank you for coming all the way from Pune, and you did talk about holistic approach, and I can tell you this, very focused. The whole iResolve platform, the discussions we've had, and by the way, it started as I2R, changed to iResolve, then went back to ITR as iResolve, and I'm sure it'll be a success. So thank you for coming. And of course, Rahul, you said 3 things: hard work, smart work, network, right? I think it was quite an amazing statement. I don't know how many actually caught on, but he's definitely great at all 3, hard work, smart work, and network. And you know, whenever I called him, and normally it was past midnight, he always said, no problem, I'll be there. So thank you so much for you know, taking out this time, and all the best to both of you. And thank you once again. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So
We do have a small memento to be given to Suhas. So Suhas, you can't leave.
Yeah.
You can't leave. Be here.
We're just going to keep you here on the stage
Right,
for some more
right,
time.
right. And may I request Renu Khanna
Renu and Ravindra.
and Ravindra? Yeah, I
Let's
didn't see
have you
Ravindra.
all to the stage.
To please come and give a small token of our appreciation. Suhas, thank you once again. And Aiye.
Because I've always felt, maybe to answer that, when we had women in health who were about to get married, they used to say like, okay, we need to relocate, we need to submit resignation. So I always used to say that you can ask your husband to move to Bangalore than
I'm very passionate about women in government.
So I wanted to balance it while giving the sort of